Saturday, the 6th of June, also happens to be D-Day. I am on my way to the protest in my city that I live in. I had my lunch. I packed my little knapsack, extra mask, I've got gloves, and I've got my GoPro, the little waterproof container for it. This is the first time I've been to a protest in a couple of years. I happened to be in Belfast when the decision to put children in cages had taken place, and I happened to be walking past the American Embassy. But you know, if you get a whole bunch of little voices together, they make a big voice, don't they? Hopefully I can find parking. It was a difficult job finding parking. Still raining. Talk to you soon. It was great. It was really energized and loads of people. The footage I took really doesn't do it justice. I am still aware of things like social distancing, clearly. The truth of it is that you could see the older people and the people with children kind of hung back and stayed out of the main focus of the crowd. That's probably the safest place for me to have been, so I just stayed back, and I happened to get a place under a tree. I'm leaving now. It all went very well. The rain actually held off quite a bit. Reflections on the protest today then. It was absolutely great to see so many young people out there. And by young, I mean between the ages of 10 and 25. It was fantastic. There were loads and loads of students there. It reminds me of how much we are influenced and we are the sum of all our parts. For these kids to be doing this gives me an enormous sense of hope for the future. By way of background for me, really, really briefly, I was born in the late 50s, which means I grew up in the 60s. I was in upper state New York, in a very small place between Buffalo and Rochester. And I believe at the time I lived there, the population was about 350 people. Half of my classes were black children. I lived in a very high poverty place. But growing up there when I did was a very important time, and it stuck in my brain. And even though we didn't have 24-hour news, we had half-an-hour news. It started at 6 o'clock. In my house, it was the Huntley-Brinkley Report.
Good night, Chet.
Good night, David, and good night for NBC News.
But most families had that or Walter Cronkite, and that was all the news that you got. And remember too, at the time, not only were there huge civil protests going on everywhere, there was also Vietnam War happening at the same time. My next door neighbor was affected by that. The father went to war, came back very damaged. And I remember very clearly seeing the marches on television.
You did not follow my orders. You disobeyed the parade order. Each and every one in this line is under arrest for parading without a permit.
Of course, there were 3 big assassinations that happened.
President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time.
I have some very sad news for all of you, and I think sad news for all of our fellow citizens and people who love peace all over the world. And that is that Martin Luther King was shot and was killed tonight in Memphis, Tennessee.
My God, Senator Kennedy has been shot.
I really remember Bobby Kennedy's because even at 7 or 8 years old, I had made the determination that Bobby Kennedy was cuter than John F. Kennedy. And I had a bit of a 7-year-old girl crush on Bobby Kennedy. I just thought he was amazing. And when he died, I remember very clearly because my parent woke me up in the middle of the night to tell me that it had happened. And I remember my parents and I watching it on TV. I also remember what it felt like to go to school the days after these 3 assassinations. That actually I remember more, because the teachers were crying in the hallways and in the classroom, and for little kids to see that was very, very strange. But that was always stuck in my head. We are the sum of all our parts. We have a lot to learn from others. We have to listen, and we have to care. Be open. Think about things critically. Try not to just think of things one way. Listen to what the other side has to say. They may have a point. This is the time to unfriend all your racist friends. This is the time to challenge their thinking. And maybe, just maybe, if they lose a valuable friend, they will do a little bit of inner searching as well. Be strong.